Ruby the Cherry and Scrim are perhaps the biggest success story to come out of underground hip-hop. They have been able to take an inaccessible sound with deeply disturbing subject matter and push it towards mainstream audiences, perhaps building the most die-hard and loyal fan base within hip-hop. They were able to achieve this all whilst being fully independent, lacking any form of mainstream coverage, and even being demonized by much of the public for their subject matter. The duo seemed to be unstoppable, although something darker than music industry corruption and media slandering almost led to their downfall. This is how addiction almost destroyed one of the most promising and influential artists to come out of the underground. Before we can understand the issues that almost led to their downfall, we first need to understand their rise in the industry and, more importantly, issues from their childhood that led to years of addiction. Ruby and Scrim both grew up in New Orleans and had an unbreakable family bond from the very beginning. They are both cousins and share the same grandma. Their grandma would not only be instrumental to their childhood, but part of the glue that held them together during their later career. They have both described their grandma to be a scary woman who would keep them in line if either of them were to have a falling out. Scrim would grow up within a very poor family, with Ruby being slightly more well off. They would both get into hip hop at around 8 years old, with Ruby being interested in artists like Lil Wayne, whilst Scrim was more into the local hip hop at the time, inspiring Ruby to dig deeper into their local scene. Ruby would begin playing instruments around 10 years old, specifically becoming passionate about the drums, whilst Scrim would receive a janky old turntable for his 13th birthday, inspiring him to begin DJing. Scrim would begin hosting mixtapes within the area, whilst Ruby began playing drums in a band named Vapor Rats. Whilst Scrim was working in a furniture store, he would find out that T-Pain produced all of his beats on GarageBand, inspiring him to purchase a laptop and begin learning how to produce. He began to see a small amount of success, making money on the side and even being signed to Universal, although he would later state how Universal royally f***ed him over, perhaps inspiring the group's independent sentiment that they would continue throughout their career. Around the same time, Scrim got fired from his job for his tattoos, which he later stated was the best thing to ever happen to him, as it inspired him to double down and work harder to make it within the music industry. At this point, Ruby had been playing drums within Vapor Rats for around 12 years and realized the project wasn't going anywhere. He stated how the rest of the members weren't putting in the same effort as he was and decided to focus on a hip-hop solo career instead. They would both focus on their respective solo careers, although as they realized their collective music sounded better, would begin focusing more on collaborative projects, eventually forming the duo in 2014. What is that? That is not supposed to happen. What happened to the video? Oh yeah, I almost forgot. This video is sponsored by Tej Hanley. I've been reading through the comments on a few of my older videos, with many of you pointing out my dark eye bags. I do actually in fact sleep, and the local garden goblin draws the eye bags on me during the night. Luckily, the sponsor of this video, Tej Hanley, solves this problem for me. A good skincare routine is vital for the modern man. Keeps you looking fresh and feeling good during your day-to-day life. The only issue being, skincare can be overly complicated at times. Tej Hanley makes it ridiculously simple. I'd recommend starting with the level 1 system, as it includes all the basics you're going to need. A daily face wash to remove any dirt, a 2 times per week exfoliating scrub that removes any pesky dead skin cells, an AM moisturizer that not only keeps your skin smooth and beautiful, but has SPF 20, and of course a PM moisturizer that locks in all that beautiful moisture throughout your honk shoe time. That may somehow still seem complicated. Luckily, Tej Hanley comes with informative and useful instruction cards. My skin has felt amazing ever since I started using Tej Hanley. Don't just take my word for it though. Tej Hanley has over 10,000 5-star reviews. And it gets even better. Tej Hanley is offering a deal. Click the first link in the description to get 40% off your first skincare system, plus a free gift of your choice. As a member, you also get 20% off for life. One of the free gift options is this silicone body scrubber, a $20 value completely free. Start your skincare journey today by clicking the link in the description. Let's get back to the video. Shortly after forming the group, they both became sick of working 9-to-5 jobs and spent all of their free time working on music together. They were so dedicated to the project that they made a pact. They both promised that if they hadn't made it in the music industry by the time they they were 30, they would both partake in self-deletion together. I of course do not encourage the promotion and romanticism of self-deletion. This may seem drastic, although it's understandable when exploring their headspace at the time. In interviews, Scrim has suggested that their lifelong depression stems from something hereditary, although hasn't gone into any more detail than that. Their depression quickly led them down the dark path of addiction, with Ruby being prescribed Vicodin at the age of 13 after a skateboarding injury that resulted in surgery. Ruby had to have 3 screws placed in his ankle and was prescribed the pill to deal with the pain. He has later stated that this prescription jump-started his addiction to opiates and would constantly try to seek them out as soon as he reached adulthood. Scrim was completely opposed to the idea of drugs until the age of 16 and instead drank heavily. He stated how he was unable to drink without blacking out and always pushed it too far. Addiction would start for Scrim after his granddad would pass away. Him and his grandfather were extremely close, with Scrim referring to him as a father figure. The pain was so intense that Scrim was tempted by a pain pill on the day of his grandfather's funeral. Instead of feeling sick or groggy, the pill made him feel extremely euphoric and allowed him to feel confident enough to give his eulogy at the funeral. He has stated in later interviews that he feels he would have been unable to give the eulogy without the help of the pill. He felt comfortable in his own skin for the first time in his life and made a pact with himself. He wanted to feel that way every day for the rest of his life. The two quickly started abusing daily. Despite this, they didn't slow down in regards to creating music. They later explained how they were so used to their addiction that it felt normal for them. They would wake up feeling euphoric and energetic, creating music all throughout the day before quickly nodding off at night. The addiction didn't dampen their creative drive, resulting in the release of their debut mixtape, which featured prominent underground artist Bones. This feature gained them a small amount of notoriety, building a small online fan base. Their lives would change forever in 2015 after working with prominent artist Puya. By that time, Puya was already established within the industry, resulting in their collaborative song Southside Suicide blowing up. I'm so sorry, I hate the censorship on this platform. Taking the group from 5 to 50,000 followers on SoundCloud. They continued to work, releasing 6 solo EPs, 5 collaborative EPs, and 6 mixtapes that same year, totaling 125 songs. They formed their own record label, G59 Records, in 2015, allowing them to have full creative control of their work, as well as being able to sign artists they felt fit into their sound and sentiment. By 2018, they had released their 43rd project and debut album, I Want to Die in New Orleans. They had achieved a huge level of monetary and cultural success. They had essentially become underground legends by this point, directly inspiring artists like Lil Peep and XXXTentacion, even taking the two on some of their earliest tours. These two artists are seen as two of the most influential figures in modern hip-hop, which in part means Suicide Boys were instrumental to the progression of the genre. This may seem entirely positive, although something extremely dark was happening behind the scenes. The two had abused drugs throughout their rise, hoping that achieving success within the music industry would fix all of their problems and fill the empty void within their lives. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case, and their mental states remained the exact same. This resulted in a huge downward spiral for Scrim. He had achieved something monumental and was living his dream, and despite this, still suffered from intense depression, leading to worsened addiction. During the production of I Want to Die in New Orleans, Scrim was consistently fastballing, taking up to 20 Adderall and Xanax a day, as well as abusing darker and more dangerous compounds. This resulted in severe psychosis, causing a monumental split between him and Ruby. Whilst Ruby and their manager were in New Zealand, Scrim bought a condo in Florida and officially announced his departure from the group on Twitter. Ruby was unable to reach Scrim and quickly hopped on a plane to confront him in person. His psychosis was so severe that he had convinced himself that Southwest Airlines had a plot to game end him. This psychosis stemmed from a story involving his brother. A few years earlier, his brother, who was also suffering from addiction, sold a bootleg Suicide Boys track to a fan for $800. When the track was purchased, he never sent the song and essentially scammed the individual. Scrim had become convinced that the kid who attempted to buy the track and got scammed was the son of somebody on the Southwest Airlines board and wanted to assassinate him as a result of this. He had convinced his entire family of the story and even shared it with his fans, resulting in various members of the fan base directly tweeting at Southwest Airlines. When Ruby arrived to confront Scrim, he asked Scrim if he actually believed that Southwest Airlines had a plot to game end him. He simply responded saying yes. Ruby became so enraged he threw his phone, smashing it on the sidewalk. Although this seems seems like a situation that would split up any music group, the cousins had a bond so tight that nothing could break them apart. They were both working to support the exact same family and knew they had to do whatever it took for that to continue to happen. Scrim saw the way his psychosis was affecting Ruby and the rest of the team and committed to the 12-step program. According to their Theo Von interview, Scrim actually saw a video on how Theo became sober, which inspired him to continue his journey. He built a positive support group around him, and despite his intense addiction, was able to stay sober. Despite Scrim's sobriety, Ruby was still within the depths of addiction. He explained how the group of people he had built around him through collective use had helped with his loneliness. Scrim set up an intervention for Ruby in 2020, which proved successful, meaning as of 2022, Scrim was 3 years sober and Ruby was reaching 2 years California sober, which essentially means he only smoked devil's lettuce. Their relationship as cousins had built a pillar of strength. They could bounce off each other in times of need and completely switched up the direction of their career and, most importantly, lives. Despite always being successful even through the darkest depths of addiction, the group had a huge shift after becoming sober. Their sound and energy had developed massively. Even visually, the two were looking much happier, brighter and healthier as a result of their life choices. As of 2024, the two are continuing to put out large amounts of music and putting on tours that give back to the underground, featuring countless artists smaller than them as a way to give back to the culture that changed their lives. The story of the group's addiction really showcases their passion for not only the music they produce, but each other as family. They continued to work together through some of the hardest times imaginable and never left each other's side, even through severe addiction and the most depraved aspects of fame and success. When I first started listening to the duo in 2015, I was inspired and impressed by their music and unique image, although saw little likelihood they would survive even the following years. Their determination and drive completely proved me wrong in that sense, and I couldn't be happier to be incorrect. The group rose to prominence entirely through the underground, and despite their huge success, it can be argued that they are still underground, producing their music entirely independently, inspiring countless individuals not only through their music, but through their drastic lifestyle change. And that's only going to leave a positive message for countless individuals suffering through the exact same problems.